What's up YouTube, Jason here with Bite My Bits. Today I want to give you my view on the current state of VR, more specifically with the HTC Vive. However, I do think a few of my talking points today could easily be carried over to most of the other VR headsets. Today I'd like to consider this video less of a review and more of an overview on some of the different things that I've found using the HTC Vive with virtual reality. And first I want to say that using the HTC Vive and immersing myself in the virtual reality experience has been completely unique and very exciting for me. I've enjoyed many games, I've tried many demos, and I mean, hands down, I've just had a lot of fun. But does that mean that I think that everybody should run out and get their own HTC Vive or Oculus Rift or whatever right now? Not really. Honestly, I think right now the best way that I could describe the virtual reality experience as it stands with the HTC Vive is it is version 1.0. Hands down, no arguments, version 1.0. It's like the original iPhone. Groundbreaking of its time, lots of new features, very exciting stuff. But still version 1.0 leaves much to be desired. And it's for that reason that I believe that most people should not burn their money on a Generation 1 virtual reality headset. And I'll give you a few key examples as to why I feel this way. And again, this is mainly focusing on the HTC Vive. Now, there are some talking points that, from what I have read online, will carry over to the other virtual reality headset options that are on the market today. However, my experience stems directly from the HTC Vive. To start off, I'm going to say that there's two things that bug me the most with the HTC Vive. The first one is going to be the resolution. Now, the resolution is pretty good on the HTC Vive. If you're looking around watching a movie, or let's just say you're playing a video game with very low graphics quality, which a lot of them have, then it's actually not too bad because you don't really notice a lot of the pixels when you're looking at something that's maybe far off in the distance. However, if you're looking at anything that requires you to focus on specific details, or have a higher resolution that you need to look at, well, that's where the resolution starts to drop off and you really start to notice the pixels when you're looking at those objects. For example, number one, I did try out the desktop application, and that allows you to basically view your desktop through your virtual reality headset and use, a keyboard or mouse as you would normally. I personally don't really like this software just because, well, I always look at my stuff, my keyboard and my mouse and everything, but it is an interesting concept for an application. The only problem is that the resolution really is just not there. In order to make it usable, you have to make the screen really big just to be able to see the fine print. So to me, the resolution is lacking to be able to use that for any kind of a day-to-day application for desktop computing. But the example doesn't stop there. If you're inside of a game, let's say you're looking at, your gun, or if you're looking at some kind of instructions, it's very easy to notice the pixels pop up when you're trying to focus on something like text or some minute detail in the graphics. So the biggest complaint that I would say that I have, and why I think that the VR headset is going to be in stage 1 or generation 1, is going to be the resolution. Now, I say generation 1 because I feel like the next generation HTC Vive can have many improvements, and the first one, of course, is going to be a higher resolution screen. Now, I remember about, 6 to 8 months ago when a new technology came out where they crammed an 8K resolution screen into the size of basically a tablet. Now, at the time, I thought, well, what is the point of that? Why do you need so much resolution in such a small screen? But now, I understand. I see why you would need that kind of a resolution. If they could take that technology and implement that into Generation 2 HTC Vive, I think that the resolution issues that I have with the HTC Vive could dramatically be decreased, if not completely eradicated. Because to me, in some games or some applications, it's really almost distracting to the point of not being usable. I find myself moving my head back and forth so I can get the pixels to blend in with each other so I could actually read or focus on whatever object that I'm trying to look at. To me, it's distracting, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough to really kind of bug me. So in Generation 2, I do definitely hope to see a higher resolution in the HTC Vive. The HTC Vive runs pretty smooth, the setup was pretty easy, everything functions fairly well. The only problem is that it doesn't function fairly well for very long, depending on what application you're running. Now, this could be chalked up to maybe the games that I'm playing or the different applications that I'm using, but sometimes the HTC Vive decides to just completely lose connections, or the controllers decide to stop tracking. For whatever reason, I have to go back to the box, unplug the power source, and plug it back in to get it to work. As an example, I did do a live stream when I was playing Hover Junkers, and I think I had to actually restart the HTC Vive control box at least twice, just to continue playing with that game. And that's actually a pretty big game in the scene of VR. I mean, it's pretty well developed, it's got some good multiplayer, I mean, it's pretty much a well-established game, so I would hope that that game would not be responsible for crashing HTC Vive. I'm not saying that that's impossible, however. But this same problem has popped up when I'm playing other games. I experienced it at least 2 or 3 times when I was playing Brookhaven. I even experienced one time when I tried to load up the desktop application to view my desktop in surround sound. So because of how many times I've actually experienced this bug, I can only chalk it up to either the firmware, the hardware, or the software of the HTC Vive. That's one of those points though, I don't really know if that's going to carry over to things like the Oculus Rift or to the Samsung VR or anything like that, because I think that's going to be more focused on this hardware and it doesn't necessarily mean it would translate over to the other hardware. Now those are only the 2 main points that affect me the most while using VR. There are a few other examples of certain things while using the VR that just kind of bug me a little bit. Take for example the games and applications available. As you've probably heard from other tech channels, most of the games and things that you get in are almost in like a beta stage. It's like a testing ground. Now they cost just as much money as a normal game, however they're not really fine-tuned enough to be a smooth experience all of the way. And there are a lot of demos out there that you can try certain things with the VR headset, but there's not enough demos for each game. And that's kind of frustrating when you want to try out a new game and it may cost $35 or $40, but you're really kind of worried that that game is just going to suck and it's going to be unplayable to you for whatever reason. So my take on this would be add more demos to these games and allow us to try these games before we buy them. Even if it's one level, one stage, one single experience with that game, just allow us to try it so we can tell for ourselves whether or not we want to buy it. That's actually kind of limited my experience with buying new games just because I don't want to take the risk of buying a beta game that maybe doesn't work very well or it's not very enjoyable and paying $35 for it just to find out that I don't like it. It's basically $35 just thrown down the drain. On the other hand, I completely understand. I mean, these games are being developed by these developers for a very small audience compared to the normal gamers market. Because again, this is generation 1. There's not going to be a ton of people that are going to be diving into the $800 or $900 plus investment range just to try this out. So they have to recuperate some of that money as much as they can. So I kind of understand.
Well, you're a rough customer, you know. All right, uncle.
Another issue that I have is going to be the tether, and this does actually go over to some of the other headsets as well, but having a tether is extremely limiting. I mean, it really allows you to get tangled up. It allows to actually ruin the experience for you because you're focused more on controlling where the tether is while you're bouncing around in your game and less on that actual game sometimes. Now, it's not distracting all the time. I mean, there's a lot of instances where you just completely forget about it. But when you're turning around and you're playing a game where you might be going around, let's say you're turning left a lot, then you'll end up finding yourself that you've actually tangled up your cable so much that you have to remove the headset and untwist it or spin the other way quite a few times. I actually ended up having to do this quite a few times because I found, like, let's say with the Brookhaven experience, I was going around and I kept shooting in the same direction. I try to focus myself on moving, the same amount left and right. But if you really get into it, you really get immersed into it, you forget that. And then you find yourself to a point where you're so twisted up that you have to pause or stop the game to get yourself untangled. So it's a little distracting having a tether altogether. And not to mention, the tether itself, albeit very long, is just not long enough. I actually brought extension cables with HDMI to play this from my computer in another room. In fact, it's all the way back in that room and I play it right here. However, I didn't buy long enough extension cables, so I was only able to bring it up to a certain point in my room. But that point in my room is actually just as close, if not closer, than what it would be if there was a computer sitting there. And I still find it very limiting because I have a pretty large room. And HTC Vive thrives off of having a large room. So not only is having a tether annoying, but it's also more annoying because it's kind of short. Which is funny because when I first opened it, I thought, wow, this cable is really long. Surely this is going to be long enough for my needs. Well, not so much.
And
Another thing with virtual reality is the sweat, and I think this actually will translate over to the other virtual reality headsets as well, not just the HTC Vive. And by sweat, I mean around your eyes. You wear this for any kind of extended period of time, and it doesn't even have to be very long. I'm talking 30 or 45 minutes, you start to get sweaty all around your eyes. And that sweat sits on your face, it starts turning your skin red, your whole face just starts sweating from this. And I think to fix that would take some creative engineering as far as how do you put airflow in there without adding light, that sort of thing, or for that matter, very much noise, vibrations, etc. So honestly, I can't see a way to fix that because I don't really know how. However, I do think that sometime at some point they might find a solution for that issue. But for right now, when you use HTC Vive or probably any other virtual reality headset, you either A, have to just kind of deal with a completely drenched headpiece, or B, take breaks every 30 to 45 minutes. Now, just to be clear, this isn't going to be with every single application or game that you play. There's going to be games like the Brookhaven Experiment or Hover Junkers, ones that can be proving to be very physical games on your part, moving around, jumping around, blocking, doing whatever. It's those games that cause you to sweat that actually just get soaked up by this headset and turns them into a very nasty experience pretty quick. But that is kind of a good thing. For a normal day-to-day gamer who maybe doesn't get a lot of exercise, maybe it's good to have an HTC Vive to give you that, workout that you're not normally going to get. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a physical game. It just sucks because all that sweat gets trapped around your face and turns your face red, gets you all bloated, and just kind of messes with you. Now, the next big thing I think that probably bugs me a lot, but I've kind of gotten used to, is going to be the field of view. If you want the best resolution, clarity, or detail in your image, the best way to look at something is dead on. You don't want to use your eyes like you normally would in the real world. The reason is when you look off to the side of the screen, things start to get blurry. So the only way to really focus on something is to look at it straight on. It's kind of bugging because in normal life, when we look at something, we look halfway with our eyes and then halfway with our head. We're never doing this where we look directly at somebody like we're a chicken. And I think that's something that can easily be fixed with a bigger or a high resolution screen, different optics, things like that. But again, that's going to be Generation 2 or Generation 3 sometime down the line. But with all the downsides to the HTC Vive and the virtual reality experience, I have to say that I feel that almost everybody should experience it. I mean, I don't think that everyone should go out and buy it, but I do think that everybody should experience it. Whether it's at a local computer shop, convention, technology, whatever, it doesn't matter. Wherever you can, if you have the ability, to test out and try a virtual reality headset, I would say do it. It's very emerging. It's like, I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, it puts you in a whole new world. It's a whole different experience to gaming. And I truly enjoy it. I love it. I can say that I absolutely love it. I just think that there's a few flaws that make it not as enjoyable as I think it should be. However, the ability to get put into an entirely different world and experience a whole different level of gameplay, I mean, it's changing it. I mean, it changes the game. You know, I found myself playing a simple video game. It was called Fantastic Contraption. I've probably put more hours into that game than any other game that I've played. And the main reason is that you can sustain your gameplay without being worn out. Something like the Hover Junkers, I mean, for me, after about an hour, I'm ready for a break, or I've lost interest in it. The Brookhaven Experiment, of course, is just a demo, so you can only really play so much of that. But Fantastic Contraption allows you to build and solve puzzles using fantastic contraptions. And it's interesting because you are solving puzzles on a 3D plane. You're able to manipulate things just as you were just in this crazy world, and things just, I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but it's very emerging, and it's very exciting to see that kind of technology. And actually, the Fantastic Contraption in my eyes actually translates directly over to like an engineering platform where, sure, this is a game, but maybe sometime in the future, engineers will be able to build buildings or, you know, cars or whatever they want to using virtual reality headsets, because the level of control that you have, as accurate as the controllers are, you might actually be able to build something that is usable in the real world. You can build and design something. So it's interesting technology, and I really enjoy playing that game. And the best part is that actually is a free game, so definitely enjoy that as well. But again, there are some instances, even in that game, it's very cartoony. I do notice the resolution, the pixels, and everything in my screen when I look at objects. So it is a little distracting. Thankfully, though, it's not that bad. And as for videos in 360 degrees, well, it's something to experience, but I don't really see it as a sustainable format for me. And the reason why I think is purely because of laziness. You know, I spent some time exploring and going through some of the YouTube 360 degree videos, and it was very interesting to watch and be immersed in those videos. But honestly, I mean, it's too much work. I mean, it's interesting, it's great, but they try so hard to make something to where you have to follow a character and you got to turn around and move around to see where things are going on around you, and you might miss an action scene that you're supposed to look at or something. And you know, it's great and all. It's a good concept, but I don't know. I'm not really sold on the 360 degree video. I mean, it's definitely interesting, and there are definitely some good videos out there to watch, but I just don't see it as a sustainable format for me right now, because if I want to watch a full-length film or, you know, a long documentary or something like that, and if it's a long video, I don't really want to be standing up that entire time just to watch a video. And I feel that standing up is the only way that you can look around and actually be able to enjoy all of the video. I tried to sit down. I watched, I think it was The Jungle Book. It put me in this like cave, and I'm like looking forward, and I see an exit, and I see all these monkeys come out, and then something starts talking. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm looking around, and I don't see anything, and it was way behind me. So I'm sitting here finding myself doing this just to look at the giant monkey behind me. So it's irritating, you know? I'm trying to watch this film or whatever it is. It's basically an advertisement for The Jungle Book, and I have to turn around and do this, and then something else happens over here, so I'm sitting here like looking over here like that. So sitting down is not an option for most of them, at least the ones that I've seen. It's just not an option. Things are moving around too much that you have to change your focal point in order to be able to enjoy and absorb everything that that video has to offer. So 360 degree video can be something that could be developed in a movie format, something with a full-length cinema film. It could be. However, I think that in order for that to happen, it would not have to be something that is fully emerging in the point of following the action with your own face. I think it would have to be something shot to where all of the important details are in front of you. Everything you need to see is right in front of you. If you want to, you can look around. You can experience things. If you are watching, let's say, The Walking Dead, and you're watching a scene of somebody fighting or getting shot, that's fine. This is the scene that you should be focusing on. But if you want to, you could look over here and you could see the zombies coming out of left field. And you can see them start creeping up, and you can start be like, oh shit, you know, you need to watch out. This, you know, you could do that if you wanted to, but you're not going to be missing anything if you're not. I think if they made movies or documentaries or something like that to where the focal point was always in front of you and it didn't require you to change your focal point in order to absorb the entirety of the video, then it could be something worth watching for me. And with that, I could sit back, put on the virtual reality headset, enjoy the video, and then if I need to, I can move around and I can experience whatever else is in the area. So that's definitely in its early stages, and it's not like there's a ton of video out there. And the ones that are out there are decent quality, but they're not fantastic. I mean, it's not super high resolution, and it's not that it really matters too, because the resolution on this screen is only so high, so it's only going to look so good anyways. This brings me back to Generation 1. The first series and hopefully a long line of virtual reality headsets. And that is this. That's the HTC Vive. I hope that an HTC Vive 2.0 comes out that has a number of improvements to it that would enhance that experience for all of its users. And, well, hopefully cheaper. Making it work better, making it wireless, adding higher resolution. I mean, these are just some of the major things that I think that could dramatically increase the enjoyability of the headset. Although I do think that there needs to be some technology developed in order to be able to handle that with as little latency as is needed. Because I can tell you, there were some times where my computer, I think it was my computer, that just, it wasn't keeping up like it should. It might have been the headset, might have been my computer, not entirely sure, but I do know that when those times happened that the tracking or the movement was not spot on, or maybe there were some drop frames, I did get a little nauseated from it. So you really do need the speed and the low latency in order to enjoy VR without getting motion sickness. So I kind of understand why it's not wireless right now if we don't have the technology to provide that kind of speed. Now, I have a Zotac 980 Ti Amp Extreme video card, and I can tell from so far from all the games that I've played that that video card is easily able to handle anything that I've thrown at it at whatever the highest 90 FPS or whatever that it handles. The only time was a few instances where it was jerking around, where I had to reset my computer and everything was working just fine. I don't necessarily know if that was because of the video card or the software or something else on my computer, but whatever it is, it was fixed, and with a reboot and everything worked just fine. So if you do have a 980 Ti or higher, then I would say that you're probably set to go for virtual reality experiences. Things can only get better in the future with things like the 1080 that has enhanced audio or better fields of view or all the different technology that they're incorporating into the new video card, and of course the extra performance that you'll get with it. And it's really hard for me to judge as far as how performance demanding it is on the CPU with my computer. I do have an overclock 5960X with 64 gigabytes of RAM, so I was able to run the virtual reality headset, XSplit, upload, encode, and do all these things all at once without any kind of hiccups. So again, with the exception of that one time. So for my take, I don't really think it's very demanding. However, I wasn't really monitoring my computer CPU usage during the time. I just didn't notice any issues through most of my gameplay with anything at all, whether I was live streaming or just playing it solo. So in the end, was the HTC Vive worth it? And I've been asking myself this. I've probably dumped, it was $875 just to get it ordered and shipped to me. That was with the express shipping and everything. So $875 to get the HTC Vive. Then I dumped at least another $120 in cables and different things that I was getting set up and get ready for the virtual reality experience. And then I spent another $120 or $140 on an Elgato HD 60 game capture device just so I could try to live stream some of my virtual reality experiences. So diving in all, I'm well over $1,100 to $1,200 in just the investment in getting the virtual reality headset up and running. Do I think it was worth it? I don't know. I'm on the fence. I enjoy it. I love it. I want to make more content with it. It's exciting. I want to play more games. I want to upload more stuff to YouTube. And really what it boils down to is, for me, making content for YouTube about the virtual reality headset experience probably makes it worth it to me, just because I can get that content up. Now, if I was just a regular gamer and I just wanted to experience the HTC Vive or the virtual reality in general, I don't think it would have been worth it to me, honestly. I think looking back, if I didn't have a YouTube or if I didn't have content planned for it, I probably would have waited for Generation 2 or maybe even 3 for that matter, but probably at least Generation 2 just to get a better experience, a better product, and hopefully a lesser cost. So my recommendation is to try to find either a convention, maybe a buddy or somebody who has a virtual reality headset that you can try just to experience the virtual reality and not actually have to devote so much money into trying it yourself and owning the product. Because with the amount of flaws that it does have, I find myself getting tired of playing it pretty quick. My eyes are tired of trying to focus on pixels that aren't there, or the motion is just not perfect on some applications, or little bugs with the controllers, or the headset stop tracking, or it all adds up. It gets to a point where you just don't want to play it anymore, and you're just like, you know what? I'm going to just go back to my computer and play a regular 2D game. So that's where I stand. It is definitely worth experiencing virtual reality. I love it. It was a whole new experience for me. It changed gaming for me forever. I just don't feel as if it's worth the money in its current state. I mean, if you spend over $1,000 to get a few hours of enjoyment that you actually really enjoy, and then everything else you're just kind of mediocrely enjoying that experience, I feel like it's kind of a ball being dropped somewhere. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you have an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift? Do you enjoy it? Do you feel that it was worth your money? What are the games that you like to play? Are there any games that you actually know are out that you want to see me play? Let me know about that in the comments as well. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I definitely appreciate you. Make sure to like and subscribe below. Follow me on Twitter at _BiteMyBits, and have a good day.